guys, welcome to the Wandering Dabbler YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to make a simple mead. It's going to be a sweet mead, so it's going to be anywhere from 3.5 to 4 pounds of honey, so make sure you pick that up beforehand. It's going to be this recipe is super basic. Anybody can do it with just, a couple minutes, half an hour at tops. So if this is your first time, sit back and watch, hit that like and subscribe button, and let's get going. All right, so the first thing you're gonna need is a 1 gallon carboy. This one happens to be glass. You can pick them up on Amazon, for like anywhere from 15 to 20 bucks. If you really don't want to waste the money on that, you can do something super simple. Use an empty gallon, an empty plastic gallon. You could use one of these. They're super simple. Anybody can get one of these. Use your gallon of milk after it's all gone. If you happen to have a bucket, a 1 gallon bucket laying around, you could use one of these too. Also super simple. You can pick them up at most hardware stores. Just make sure that it is food safe, guys. Make sure that it's food safe. You don't want to end up poisoning yourself. To use one of the buckets, you will need a little extra tools and a little preparation beforehand. It's going to require you to drill a hole through the top, and you're going to want to pick yourself up some of these grommets, which I can show you what they look like real quick. They're just a little rubber piece like this. You drill a hole in the top of your bucket, insert that in. That makes the spot for your airlock. You'll have to do the same on the 1 gallon jug, but it's a lot easier to do because, of course, look at me, it's a cheap lid. You're also going to need an airlock like this, which this is a 3-piece airlock. It comes with this piece that drops right in the middle here, the top with a little bit of little holes on the top. Snap that right on in, and then you'll also need the bung, which literally fits right on the bottom of your airlock. So when you put it in, boom, it locks it in place, creates an airtight seal, and doesn't allow any oxygen or anything to get inside your mead. There's 2 different kinds. This little S-shaped one here, this type of airlock. I'm not a big fan of these. They're a little harder to clean and keep clean, and if you get blowback, it's a pain to get a brush down in there and get these all cleaned out. So I don't recommend these. I do have one. I use them, but it's just because I bought them to try, and I found out that I didn't like them. These ones, the 3-piece, are the best in my opinion because the top comes off, super simple to clean. I will say, guys, make sure all this stuff is sanitized. That brings us to our next point. You're going to want to use Star Sand, which I left over here. Give me just a second. All right, so you want to use, like I said, a sanitizer, a food grade sanitizer. I like Star Sand. Stuff works great. Basically, you take an ounce of this, mix it in like a bucket, 5 gallon bucket, or your sink. You could use a sink, and you take your carboy, which I already cleaned out beforehand. Just let it sit in there for like a minute, and bam, it'll sanitize it. And do that with all the stuff that you're going to be having in contact with your mead. You don't want any cross-contamination from anything. All right, so let's get started here. First thing you're going to do is take your carboy and take your honey, which, like I said, you're going to need 3.5 to 4 pounds of honey. I just happen to be using a clover type honey, which I forgot to take the seal off of here. I do recommend that you heat your honey up beforehand, which I have mine in a pot right here with some warm water. It just makes it easier to pour into your gallon, into your carboy, which you'll see it takes a second, even with it warmed up. But once it starts going, it starts to go. Maybe. A little squeeze here to speed it up. which I'm not worried about getting all the honey out of there because I have more than enough honey here to do what I'm doing. But for those of you that don't like to waste, feel free to take some warm water, dump it inside your container, give it a good shake, dump the rest of that inside here. Man, who knew? Even warming it up still takes a second. Which, by the way, guys, any comments and everything, just leave them down underneath, and I'll be sure to get back to you as soon as I can. Or if you just want to say hi. Come on, there we go. Trying to stop that from making a big mess. Which, by the way, guys, I forgot to say this sooner. If you're going to be using the Star Sand to sanitize everything, I recommend putting down a towel because that sanitizer can mess up your tables. It will mess up the finish on your tables if it sits for too long. So please keep that in mind when using it. Now, each one of these containers is roughly, you know, a little over 1.25 pounds. This is clover honey, but you can use any type of honey that you like. It doesn't matter. It's not a big deal. You know, whatever you think is going to be good, go ahead and use that. I mean, if you happen to have just plain old flower honey, you know, laying around, go ahead and use it. It's going to work just fine. Mead is not picky. You know, people were doing this, you know, back in the Egyptian times with clay pots and shit, so it'll be just fine. Okay, go. Now the big boy here, which we don't need much of that one. Now I'm pretty sure I said this before, guys, I'm making a sweet mead, so that's why there's a lot more honey in here. You can make, you know, a relatively normal mead that's not as sweet by using probably around 2.5 to 3 pounds of honey, if that's what you like. I myself have a big sweet tooth, so yeah, the more the better. And our first mess. That's what happens when you don't pay attention, guys, and you accidentally pour too much honey in all at once. It just goes all over the place. Seems to be going right down the side here. I'll use the towel to wipe that up real quick, just to get that off of there. Not a big deal. I'll wipe that all up here in a second. It just came out a little faster than I was expecting. And boom. By the way, guys, I am eyeballing this. It doesn't have to be exact. It's not going to affect your mead in any way. It might make it a little sweeter or a little less sweeter. You know, if you're really that big of a stickler about it, then by all means, lay it out. You know, it's your own preference. That's the beauty of being able to make your own mead. You can make it however you want. Next thing you're going to want to do is add in your water. I do not recommend using tap water, guys, especially if you live in town, because the chlorine and everything inside your tap water can end up killing your yeast and affecting it in a bad way, and it just will stop the fermentation and it's just not going to work properly. So I highly recommend going out and buying a gallon of like spring water, or, you know, some sort of filtered water that doesn't have anything in it. Just go ahead and put that in your 1 gallon carboy. By the way, if you're in Europe, these are also known as a demijohn. Let's see here, I just want to get a little bit in there. Now, I'm not filling this all the way up to the top right at the beginning, guys, because you actually want to take a second, get your bung, put it on top of there. It's got honey all over it still. Put your bung on top of there and give it a good shake. Get that honey all mixed up in there. Now, take your time because it could take a second. You can see it's all sticking to the sides, you know, not wanting to mix in. Just keep at it. Doing this all in real time, guys, so stay with me. Sorry if it's a little boring. So I'm trying to do this as fast as I can because me, myself, I hate watching 30-minute videos of guys just sitting there talking. When, you know, it could have taken 5 to 10 minutes to show what they're doing. By the way, guys, like I said before, hit that like and subscribe button. I'm going to be showing you the whole process of this mead step by step. Every week I'm going to be putting up a video on how it's fermenting and everything, and how to use a hydrometer to test and see what the alcohol level is on this. You know, the hydrometer is just going to tell you pretty much the sugar content inside your mead, which with the amount of honey that I added in this one, it'll be anywhere from 1.130 to 1.120, which could roughly ferment anywhere out to, you know, anywhere from 11 to 17% alcohol. It just depends, you know, and like I said, it depends on how sweet or how less sweet you want your mead to be. So that will all be different. I also apologize for the venue, guys, because this is actually not my house. I'm watching my house for a family member. Or watching a house for a family member. Okay, that looks like it's all mixed up in there. You can see how it turned into like dirty water. That's what you want it to look like after you get done shaking it up. It just shows you that all that honey is incorporated into your mix there. Or what some people say, a must. Go ahead and take your bung off of there. What you're going to want to do now is go ahead and put the rest of your water in here. By the way, don't put too much water in here, you guys. We want to leave a little bit of headspace in here for when it's, you know, doing its fermentation. If you end up putting too much, it could end up getting what we call blowback, which basically is when the yeast becomes overactive and it ends up blowing back through your airlock. Makes a mess. Starts spraying out everywhere, which I myself like to go about right there. And it smells good. It smells really good. You can smell that clover honey in there. Pretty strong, which not a big deal to me. Go ahead and close your bung up on top of there again. Just give it a good shake. Make sure it's all mixed in there. All right. Here we go. Take the bung off of there. Let me go ahead and rinse this off in the water and everything here because it's all sticky. All right. Okay, so the next thing you're going to want to do, guys, is add in a yeast nutrient. This is basically going to give your mead a kickstart. It's going to help it ferment, and it's going to stop it pretty much from stalling. Whew. That was a bad burp. Like I was saying, you want to add in a yeast nutrient. This is basically going to stop, you know, your mead from stalling out, which basically is it just not fermenting anymore. Now this particular one recommends 1 teaspoon per gallon. If I can get it open here. I apologize too for the fumbling around, guys, the nervousness. This is my first YouTube video where I actually feature myself like this. Go ahead and put that in there. And then before you put your bung back on there and give it a good shake, you want to add in a yeast energizer. Now, you can buy yeast energizers like ammonium phosphate, I believe. But for someone like me who doesn't like to waste money on stupid stuff like that, go ahead and take a half a cup of water and an extra packet of yeast Take your extra packet of yeast, half a cup of water, boil it for 10 to 15 minutes, and then bam, you got yourself a yeast nutrient, which ends up boiling down to about that much. And you can see it's thick, turns real thick. You want to take that, go ahead and add that in there. It's going to give your yeast nutrients and everything to eat. It's going to give them an extra little boost. Pretty much an extra, an extra bullet there for you to make sure that it doesn't stall out on you. All right, and then you just want to take your bung again, stick it back on there, give it another good shake. And then again, when you're all done, this is what it should look like, which I'll show you a little close up there, guys. It just looks like brown water. Things all sticky again. So is my hand. Let me give that a wash real quick. Okay. So now that we have that all mixed in there, what you're going to want to do is take your packet of yeast, which I am using EC-1118 yeast. It's a high fermentation yeast. It's great for meads. And it's great for what we're doing here. You can pick it up on Amazon, guys. Super cheap. I mean, I think I spent like $5 and got like 10 packs of this stuff. Like I said, super cheap. It's just yeast. But that being said, if you wanted to, you could use bread yeast. Bread yeast works just fine too on something like this. Go down to your local grocery store and pick up some regular old bread yeast. It'll do the same thing. Like I said, they used to do this in like ancient Egypt, guys, with like clay pots. So, let's go ahead and add in your yeast. Make sure you get it all in there. I'm kind of splattering it everywhere. Put your bung back on there. Now, you don't have to shake it up, guys. There's a lot of people that tell you just have to put it in there. I like to shake it up in there. I don't know why. I think it just incorporates it better. I think it gives it a nice, good kickstart. But like I said, you don't have to. And then once that is done, that's pretty much it, guys. That's it. Now all you need to do is put your bung on there. Your airlock. So go ahead, take your airlock, which they have a built-in fill line on them, which is about halfway. You really don't want to go past that. Just use a little bit of water here. Which, of course, it's not going to work for me. Too much. There we go. Put that on there. That on there. Push it down in there. Make sure it's in there nice and good. You don't want it popping off. Like I said, you don't want any oxygen getting in there. And bam, that's it. That's all you have to do. Your first mead, done. Super simple, super easy. Anybody can do it, guys, like I said. Now you're just going to want to let this set anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks. I do highly recommend checking your alcohol, like your sugar levels and everything in here, using a hydrometer, which I totally forgot mine. I'm going to be doing another video showing you exactly how to test and use one of those here in the next couple days. It's also great for testing to see when your alcohol is done, so when you know all those sugars are out of there, or it's at the level that you want it to be. But like I said, I'll be doing a video on that separately because, like an idiot, I totally forgot it. Make sure you put this somewhere, roughly in like this 65 to 70 degree range. That way it continues to ferment. It's just the proper temperature for your mead or beer or wine or something like that. I do highly recommend that you wrap this in something, particularly like a towel, just a regular old towel. Wrap it in a towel, put it somewhere where it's not going to be in direct sunlight, and that's it. You're all done. I'm going to be putting this recipe in the description below, guys, so if you want to try to make it yourself. And like I said again, please remember, if you like the video, hit that like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time on The Wandering Dabbler.